Hey, what's up, guys? Today I was joined by Paul Fitzpatrick. Paul is the broker of record for Keller Williams Home Group Realty. It's not his first time on here, but it's always a pleasure to have him join me. And today our podcast was based off of a conversation we had where we were just kind of looking at the numbers in the beginning of the year versus now. And if we take into account the lower purchase price but higher interest rates and a lower down payment, is it actually more expensive to get into the same type of home today than it was earlier this year? So we answer that question. And I think the main thing here is, like Paul said, we need to look behind the curtain. So hope you guys enjoy this. Grab a tea and I'll catch you on the next one. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Spilling the Tea, brought to you by Pekoe Mortgages. This is a podcast where we look to interview movers, shakers, hustlers, people that are inspiring, have inspiring stories, and help to push the envelope on what's possible. I am your host, Daniel Johannes, and I'm a mortgage broker, but I'm also a business owner. I've created multiple startups, including a graffiti removal business. I've done loose leaf tea, I've done kombucha, juice bars, you name it. So I've got some experience in this, and I'm looking forward to these conversations that I have. If you like it, please comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spilling the Tea, a Pekoe podcast. I am here. Once again, I'm joined by Paul Fitzpatrick of Keller Williams Home Group Realty. Paul's joining me today because we've got a lot to talk about the current market. And Paul, you and I actually spoke a little bit about this, and we thought, let's jump on a podcast because to put things into perspective on really what's going on in the market. Is it more expensive right now to buy than it was maybe 6 months or a year ago? So welcome back, Paul. Let's get into it. So share with us, what have you uncovered?
Well, it's interesting because, most people are thinking that this market is still unaffordable. It's unattainable. Interest rates have gone up and just made it even more unaffordable. But when I'm looking at the number of where the prices have gone in the city of Guelph, we're down almost 14% year over year from a peak that was very much at $951,000. So we've come off a big chunk in a year. So for a buyer out there considering that, that means less down payment that they've got to come up with if they're going to go conventional financing. And two, they're going to need less mortgage, which means it should be easier for them to qualify for. And the interesting thing is you provided me with some numbers in terms of where payments are going to be. So the experiment we did was, what was that $1 million property like, or $951,000 average typical home in Guelph last year? Well, that this year is now $725,000, and those payments have dropped considerably. So the challenge we're seeing in the market here is that we've still got buyers that are thinking it's up here. Sellers that think it's up here, and buyers that don't think the values have dropped enough for them to want to jump back into the market. So it's really, really a bizarre time in the marketplace where, you've got these two sides of the equation and neither one of them are seeing the opportunity.
It's true. And I think you hit it on the head there with, right now I see it as a discount. To jump in and get a comparable property for a heck of a lot less, and then also to put less down. But we kind of we have to filter out a lot of the noise, right? Because there's quite a bit of misinformation, I feel, whether it's coming through from friends or family that have heard something, or, maybe some major news articles or media outlets that report on things that are sensational, but it's kind of the furthest thing from the truth. So, Paul, you and I we put together a little thing. I'm going to put it up on the board here, and it's close to your 951,000, but I think it's a little bit further off. let's see if I can
I think
share it.
our illustration was at 1 million.
Yeah. So you can see
Yeah.
over here, we've got Guelph home prices then and now. So we used back in April an average price. I pulled some of this data online of just over $1 million. And
Yeah.
if we compare that to October of, just last month, the average price was sitting about $775,000. Now, a lot of people talk about rate. Rate has gone up. Obviously, rate's gone up because we have an issue with getting inflation under control. And that's part of the monetary policy that the Bank of Canada and Tiff Macklem have decided, you know what, this is how we're going to get back down to sort of our target rate. So they're increasing our interest rates. What does that mean? Well, back in April, the average interest rate we were dealing with for a fixed rate, 5-year fix, was 4.09%. That's just an average. And if you look at it now, yes, it's gone up. It's gone up almost 1.5%. Actually, over the last, I'd say, week or so, we're starting to see fixed rates go down a little bit, but that's a whole different thing we can talk about later. Now, if we compare that with the amount of down payment, you can see there's a substantial amount of savings there, about $50,000 less that you have to come up with, which translates into a lower mortgage amount too. So the payments are lower today than they were back in April to get a comparable house. So we broke it down here: 239,000 lower purchase price, almost 50,000 less down payment, 191,000 less mortgage. This is really big too, because paying a lot less on your mortgage means you're going to be debt free a heck of a lot quicker. Right. And from a cash flow perspective right now, as we kind of get into an economy where things are costing a heck of a lot more, it's nice to be sitting in a place, and even though you're paying a higher interest rate for that loan, you're borrowing less, which means that your monthly payments have gone down. And it's quite considerable if we're looking at sort of the average in Guelph right now. So yeah, it's interesting. That's kind of like what what we had put together there. And what are you noticing right now as far as we go into November? Now we're hitting November. Obviously, I guess the numbers haven't come out right yet. But what are you noticing?
Well, and that's the interesting thing. We've had the story on this for a couple of weeks now, and we've been putting it out there to our clients and our prospective buyers. And it's a struggle to get them to acknowledge the reality of that situation. It's like people are still kind of frozen in place because they're seeing that there's further interest rate increases pending. They're seeing the headlines that say prices are down even more. So I think there's a lot of people thinking they're just going to time the market, which to me,
That's risky.
it is risky. It's, especially if you've got to do, if you're trying to sell and then buy in the same market, there's no advantage to trying to time it, because, if you're trying to upsize, the higher you go, that 10% difference is a bit bigger, but you're taking just as much of a haircut on the sale, and vice versa if you're downsizing. So I think it's part of it is a number of different things. One, people are sort of frozen by the bad news that's out there. Two, I think there's still a lot of people that are just sort of stepping back and taking a break from everything because they don't know where the rest of the economy is going to go. Where's their, I'm not hearing an awful lot of talk about job security yet, because there's still a lot of openings in the job market, but
Right.
I just get a feeling that people are concerned about inflation. They're concerned around a number of different areas that seems to have them frozen in place, and I think they're going to miss the opportunity that's here. So we just got to keep putting it out there that there are opportunities if people are interested in, making a move on their home, because I think come springtime, we're going to see that uptick again in the market. Where prices are probably going to start popping back up again. Not
Yeah,
that I
I'm
think
with you on that.
they're not going to go way up like they did last April, but again, if you're trying to time the market, you never know where the bottom is going to be or where the peak is going to be.
Yeah.
If it makes sense, I think you make a move.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, in this type of market where a lot of the decisions that people are making right now, they are based on what could or couldn't happen in the future. And none
Hmm.
of us really have a crystal ball, but we can kind of look at some of those indicators and, make an informed decision on possibly what could unfold. So when I look at it, when I talk to a client that's considering, they come to us looking for a pre-approval, and they want to know, well, is this a good time? I can't say whether or not because I don't have that crystal ball, but we can look at a few things, some indicators to determine whether or not the real estate is overinflated right now. I don't think
Hmm.
so. I think this is a great opportunity to get into the market because if we look at sort of a macro level of what's going on, we know that housing affordability, that's at the forefront. With the federal provincial government, we don't have enough houses. It's simply put. I know that I believe it was the Ford government just tabled a new, what was it? What are they calling it? A week ago or so, it was a new program that they're trying to launch. And the plan is to, in the next decade, build 1.5 million homes. So
Hmm.
it's called the Building More Homes Faster Act. So they're trying to put into play this act to say, hey, look, we've got an issue right now. It's housing, and there's not enough inventory. So how do we deal with it? They've started to download this to the municipalities. The problem is
Right.
municipalities are pushing back, saying, "Well, hold on a second. You're being very aggressive with sort of what our targets are supposed to be to help with our supply issues." And right now, I think you're right. Everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know if they should be stockpiling toilet paper again, or just having a wait and see approach whether or not it's a good time to buy. Now, interest rates going up and inflation doesn't help the equation. But if we look at it and we say, look, there's just simply not enough housing for everyone, and just simply this article that came out where they had stated that the Ford government is downloading this to municipalities, and municipalities saying, look, we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the resources. In fact, I think one article I read, Paul, it said that the average for 2022, we built about 90,000 new homes. 2021, we hit 100,000. This is the first time we had 100,000.
Hmm.
With this very aggressive plan, there's a little bit of ramp up for the next 12 years in order to achieve the $1.5 million housing starts that they want to see. Now, with that ramp up, it means that we have to average about 250,000 new builds. When the 2021 record of 100,000, the only time we saw that was prior to that was 1987. So it's a very unrealistic goal in order to get enough housing out there to meet the current demand. And I think a lot of people, yeah, they're sitting on the sidelines waiting. And if you wait too long, in my opinion, we're going to start to see things accelerate again, I think, in the new year,
Exactly.
especially
Yeah.
now. Yeah, the Bank of Canada, they recently came out, and Tiff Macklem had said, they're walking, the bank is walking a fine line because they have to increase rates enough to deal with inflation and to get us away from recession. But if they go too hard at it, then obviously it really puts a strain on Canadians. So they said things are moving in the right direction. And in fact, I think there was a quote here that Tiff said, and this was just a few days ago. He said, "This tightening phase will draw to a close. We're getting closer, but we're not there yet." So what that tells me is that, look, interest rates in the way they are today, yes, they're a little bit elevated from where they were 6 months or a year ago, but it sounds like next year we could start to see those rates drop. If we don't take care of that housing issue, we're gonna be back where we were before. Maybe not at the same prices, but yeah, it's definitely going to be a little
Yeah.
bit more difficult.
Yeah, that pressure is not going away. And when I hear, Cam Guthrie, our mayor, talking about that they've been asked to build another 18,000 units, I think is what the government has downloaded onto them.
Hmm.
They're going to be challenged by that. Um,
For sure.
the builders right now have all pulled back. They're waiting for material costs to come down. They're waiting for all this legislation to happen, so they've got a clear direction. And so they're already, we're going to be starting from behind. So,
Hmm.
I look at that, and we share this kind of information with our clients who are buyers and sellers. But we also temper it with, what, if it fits your budget, if it makes sense, you should be doing something now. Why put your life
Hmm.
on hold for something that may or may not happen, or for some perfect set of circumstances to come together? It doesn't make sense. If you can afford it, if it works for your budget, you're not overextending yourself, make the move. I mean, I got to keep reminding people that real estate is the long game. You've got to
Right.
look at it in 5-year increments, because it's not going to always be like it was in 2020 and 2021, where it's insane double-digit growth.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Um, I keep showing people the graph. Last 60 years, average 5.5%, 6% growth in the marketplace. Some years are
Hmm.
way up, some years have been way down.
But you
Um,
just look at the average. Yeah.
yeah, and
It's the
and
same thing with rates too, right? Because people are
mhm,
saying, well, rates are so high. And if you can qualify for a loan and you're qualifying on a purchase price that's a lot less, you know, you could look at a 2 or 3 year term. And if you
yeah,
truly believe that in a few years we're going to be out of this and rates are going to be a lot lower, then just get yourself to a point where you're up for renewal when rates are lower. But yeah, I agree with you that it's definitely 5 or 6% year over year. That type of increase is yeah, it's nothing to take lightly. The other thing I wanted to mention here, Paul, is that I think one thing that people don't bring up, and I actually had Cam on our podcast. I think I may
okay,
have mentioned to you a while ago. He's an old friend of mine, and he did mention this is something that the city of Guelph is dealing with. Definitely is the affordability issues and inventory, but skilled labor, construction
mhm,
workers, right? That industry is short. They're short skilled labor. So I don't understand where the government is planning on coming out and being able to build these if simply the skilled labor isn't there to build
yeah.
these units. So
So it's and you're right, and I think this is a typical political response, in that it's, let's stomp out that fire. The other one, that's the embers that are about to ignite over here, whether that's the labor or immigration or all those things,
mm,
we'll deal with that later. This is, I think we're starting to see some of the politicians wake up to the fact that we need to start thinking more in longer term periods, more than a 4-year political cycle. But it's breaking them of that habit of thinking, what have I got to get accomplished in 4 years in this election cycle.
right,
I wish they would take a bigger approach and go, okay, all these pieces, labor, immigration, the demand for housing, sustainability, the environment, all those things that play a massive role in real estate, but they're dealing with it piecemeal. And I don't know
yeah,
what the solution is to it. I mean, it's above my pay grade. I can sit here and play armchair quarterback all day long. Um, but I'd love to be part of the solution on this. But it's so tough getting all the stakeholders and all the players together at the table, and marching together to solve the problem.
right, yeah.
And it's not just housing; it's all over the place.
Yeah, it's so true. And I mean, I think the best we can do is sort of, use the platforms that we have to let people know that, look, there's a lot more to this. It's not
Hmm.
simply just, well, rates are up and so much inventory in the market and that's it. And people
Yeah.
are overpaying and, you finally got it, you Canadians, you're paying too much for your housing. It's just going to crash. And yeah, I think there's definitely, everyone kind of treats all of this in a vacuum, and it's simply that's not the way it should be. And we got to do a better job at
Yeah.
at all of this. I agree. So, Paul, was your brokerage here? I know you guys you not only deal with Guelph, but you've got some of your agents in other areas, other markets too, right? Like Fergus, Elora, you had mentioned, and all
Yeah.
over the place. Yeah. So, what are you noticing in those markets too, as far as inventory prices?
Well, again, it's the prices have all pulled back in all these markets.
Mm-hmm.
We're still seeing good demand in places like Fergus and Elora, and we're still seeing a fair number of people that are coming from the GTA that are still interested in relocating outside the GTA, and it's not always price driven. They come out, they
Right.
see the lifestyle that these smaller communities have, and I don't know if when the last time was you drove between Fergus and Elora to see the new hospital, all the new infrastructure that's gone in there.
They're really putting,
Um,
yeah.
they've done a fabulous job up there, and I get why, you know, there's a lot of people showing interest in moving up to that area. Granite Homes
Mm-hmm.
has the big development on South River Road, just outside of Fergus, or between Fergus and Elora, and they're putting up some beautiful homes, and I know the demand has been fabulous for that. So those communities are growing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're attracting people from all over the place. It's not just local growth, and we're just going to keep seeing more and more of that. We've got
I
the same
agree. Yeah.
situation. Yeah, we've got an office
I,
up in Shelburne that we're seeing the same sort of thing.
Yeah, that's it's one of the reasons actually. I grew up in Toronto, downtown Toronto, left from King West and Liberty Village area, and to come out to Kitchener Waterloo. That was a big step, but
Hmm.
it wasn't just it was price driven, but it was also quality of life in what was important for me, right?
Yeah,
So, and as sort of like I've settled in here, we've noticed maybe we need a little bit more of this and we don't really need that, and starting to look at other places too. I think the one thing that definitely draws people to some of these other areas besides affordability, yeah, is quality of life. And for some people that have come to me and said, I'm considering this, but interest rates are too high or I can't qualify. Rental rates, we can probably talk about this. For
yeah.
rental, it doesn't matter what market you're in, rents are up. Um, so, yeah, what are you seeing for rents?
Rents are definitely up, no question about it. Um, we're
Now that actually
certainly.
that could be a good thing. Rents going up is actually a very good thing for anyone that's looking to qualify, because now, if you could only afford, let's say, like a bungalow, but now there's a property that has a separate basement entrance, we can use that rental income to help qualify you for a higher mortgage. Not only that, but it becomes a mortgage helper too, so it helps to offset
Exactly.
that cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and when that basement apartment in Guelph is now, pushing $2,000 a month as a rent,
Oh yeah.
go back to your illustration, and there's
Right.
a big chunk of your mortgage payment now covered.
Yeah.
Um, so and more of that, and part of that legislation we talked about earlier is now they're going to allow, if it's the right size of property, you could put a third unit in there.
Right. Are you
So
talking like a carriage home or a?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've got it now that you can do a standalone accessory suite outside on the property, not part of the house. But now the Ford government is also talking about saying, okay, as a property owner, you have the right to sort of intensify your property, so you can do a duplex or a triplex on it. So we're
Mm,
seeing, that kind of legislation come out as well, to sort of defeat the NIMBYism that goes on, where I don't want to see a triplex or a duplex in my neighborhood of single family homes. As the property
right.
owner, I now have I will have the right to say it's residential. Intensification is what everybody wants. It's not a 20-story building, but you will be allowed to do that. So that's going to help alleviate the problem too. But yeah, to your point, on mortgage helpers, the city is usually very receptive to try to make sure that an accessory dwelling can be created, done legally, done safely, and there's constant demand for those products, and the rents are very good these
Oh,
days.
the rents are fantastic. Yeah, for anyone that's looking to do that. Now, if someone wanted to do something like that, what does that have to the overall property value, in your opinion, on a home? Does it help
A
it? Is it
registered a registered accessory apartment adds a ton of value because it's legal, because I can now count the rent in my income for
right?
qualifying.
Right.
The city will recognizes it. It might have a minor impact on your taxes, but still that. And then if you go to sell it, it opens the market up to a much bigger pool of buyers, because now you can
Right.
attract those entry level buyers that really stretch to get in there. You attract the investors. I mean, one of the
Hmm.
things I've told all my investors over the years of doing this is, if you buy a bungalow, then look to get a duplex. Put that basement unit in, because now you're lowering your risk. That if you have a vacancy for any length of time, the property is still generating some sort of revenue.
Yeah. It's one
So
of the
it
reasons
just
I kind of. Sorry, I was just going to say, Paul. It's one of the reasons you hit it on the head there, that I kind of moved away from investing in condos, because to me it was like it didn't make much sense. I either have 100% vacancy or 100% tenancy. I didn't really like that. So being able to
Mhm.
diversify and say, yeah, sure, if you've got a bungalow that you can convert the basement and have that as offsetting your costs, then sure,
Yeah,
why not?
exactly.
Why
Yeah,
not?
yeah.
All right. So what do you, I mean, it's hard to say what's going to happen in the future here, Paul, but I always love jumping on these calls with you, because we definitely do get an insight on what's going on, where the numbers are at. And when you reach out to me, it's like, hey, let's take a look at this and see where affordability is today. Like, I had an idea, a general idea in my head, but putting it to paper and actually looking at those numbers and saying, wow, if for me, this is all I do all day is run these numbers. But it actually surprised me too, to say, wow, the affordability is here. And that comparison on the 5-year fix, I think it was 4.09 back in April, and then
Yeah.
mid fives right now. Because of the bond market right now, bond yields are down a little bit. So we've been seeing over the last week, 5-year fixed rates and 3-year fixed rates are starting to drop. That's good news. So hopefully that trend
Mhm.
continues, because that just kind of pushes the needle even further into, is it a good time to buy? Heck, yeah, I think so. So
I
we should do
agree.
this again.
And I think we just have
Let's
to, yeah, I
sorry,
love that. And
go.
like I say, my parting word on this would be, we just have to look beyond the headlines.
Yes.
It's You're right. You look at things on the surface. If you drill down, you'll find the gold that's in the market there. And I'm I am optimistic that things are going to pick up again, and it's going to be a healthy market. And vibrant. It's not going to be excessive. It'll be. I think we're in for a good, healthy, normal,
Mm,
stable market.
you got it. I'm with you there too, guys.
Great.
If you want more
Thank you.
information, I'm going to leave. I'll leave Paul's information below. I'm sure if you guys have questions on the market, he'll be happy to help you out and guide you along the way. Also, some of the stuff we talked about today, I do have some links to articles. I'll include that below. And Paul, thank you again for joining us. Hope to talk to you soon on this, because I think it's a really pressing issue and something that is changing so frequently that it's always good to check in with you. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Dan. Thank you, sir. Take care.
Okay, you take care. Bye.